one thing one has to do is to make the soldier realize that he's not suffering from a psychological disability. He's suffering from a change in his brain function and structure that's produced by a terrible life-threatening experience, and that everybody would have done the same thing.
Post-traumatic stress disorder, the number one thing is they're reliving it some way or other. It's like someone says, what are you doing with that? The war's over. And there's one poet who said, yes, the war's over and over and over and over again in my mind. And they can be in dreams, it could be in flashbacks, which get a lot of press, but I think don't exist very frequently. It could be in intrusive thoughts. That's the most common one. And there are people who have intrusive thoughts every day, almost all day.
When I see car wrecks and when I hear not even explosions, but cars backfiring, I don't see what everyone else sees. You know, I see mental images in my mind that have to do with the war, and that's hard to deal with. I mean, that still bothers me when I see even a car wreck, people laying, and it has nothing to do. They don't have military clothes, and all of a sudden I'll see my friend that's laying on the ground with half his head gone.
I was driving on the freeway in the Bronx, in Major Deegan, and someone cut me off one day, and I got so pissed off. I followed him off his exit. I got out of the car, wrapped my t-shirt around my hand, and I went to punch his window in. And I realized that there was nothing restraining me when I came home. I just held that frustration inside. I brought that home with me. I didn't associate it with Iraq. I didn't associate it with frustration, my past frustration, my past experiences. I just felt at that moment I was angry, and this is gonna be my appropriate reaction to his actions.
Whatever the normal response is, they were taught in basic training to respond even faster, and their life depended on it. Their buddy's life depended on it. And so they come back, and then it's not appropriate here. There's an old saying that if you're a good soldier, you'll be a bad civilian. And this is part of it. You've been taught to be angry, you've been taught to kill, and it was necessary maybe for your salvation and survival. It's not adaptive now.
Nobody calls these people up and says, hey, I want to ask you a couple questions and make sure you're doing okay. I want to ask how you're doing, how's your family doing? So usually when they finally get to the point of diagnosing PTSD or something else, it's after there's been an episode, a marital problem, or a crime, or a meltdown at work, or a serious fight with a friend or a sibling. And then they go, wow, I'm messed up. I've got something to deal with. And then hopefully they come forward and seek help at the VA.
Well, there's times where I think it's going away, and I'll go weeks at a time without anything. And just last night, I couldn't sleep at all because, I don't know, I thought somebody was in the house or something, and I swore up and down there was somebody on the roof. And then you know that feeling you get when you don't want to move at all. And then I don't know, I was really paranoid. I sleep with a gun under my bed, and just really bothers me sometimes. Any little thing, I'll go investigate.
I started carrying around a gun with me wherever I went because I felt a lot safer doing that, and it was just a part of me that I didn't let go from the Army. And one night I drank a 175 of whiskey and went to a party, and a guy pissed me off, and so I pulled it out and I loaded it, put it to his head, pulled the trigger, and it didn't go off, and so I pistol whipped him. And from there, they called the cops. I was really drunk, so I, pointed at everybody, told them to get away, and the cops came in. I got rid of the weapon, actually. They didn't even catch me with it, but I fought the cops off for a while, fought two of them off me and tried to get away, and then got beat up pretty good by the police and was thrown in jail, charged with felony assault with a deadly weapon. I had 7 felonies. Of course, they were trying to slam me with everything. But sitting in jail, in a jail cell, full of dirt bags, pretty much, it was just a huge reality check of what am I doing. 1 minute, everyone in my family was proud of me. Got quite a few medals in Iraq and Afghanistan. Did really well as a soldier. Everyone was proud of me because I did that. And now I'm sitting in a jail cell, facing 5 to 10 years in prison. Luckily, I just got break after break. Instead of going to 5 years in prison, I went to a PTSD program. That's been the most probably positive thing that's happened to me, because it made me think, what am I doing? What am I so angry about?
The emotional scars that these troops are bringing back with them, we don't understand it, we don't see it. It's not a physical thing that you can look at and say, well, this boy was wounded. And our son hid this for a long time from a lot of people. Even his unit didn't see it. Nobody saw it coming.
All of a sudden, it exploded, and it exploded months later. And it caught us off guard. And regretfully, we had conditioned ourselves in a way that, okay, Jeff is having a bad day. We never knew how the depth of the torture, the depth of the hell he was going through.
What we are seeing is a Department of Defense that when the soldier comes back, if they have a psychological injury or a combat stress injury from war, they are not diagnosing that illness. What they are doing is calling it a personality disorder or a bipolar disorder or some other kind of disorder that has nothing to do with combat.
A good friend of ours had been in Iraq for about 8 months, 9 months, came home, had been trying to get custody of his little girl, finally got custody of her. 3 weeks after he's had her, he's at his friend's house and he's got a babysitter for her, and he called up the babysitter, and nobody talked about it. Called up the babysitter and said, hey, can I talk to my little girl? She said, no, she's asleep already. And he's just said, okay, we'll just tell her that her daddy loves her very much. Hung up the phone and killed himself, and when everybody was talking about it and when they found him and was he drinking? Was he doing drugs? They thought of everything that they could think of as an excuse why he did this, except the biggest one. Well, nobody stopped to realize that this man had just been in a war zone for 9 months, a year, and nobody talked about that.
I read the other day there were suicides that are occurring in Iraq, and one of the public relations people said those people probably would have killed themselves anyway. And I found that hard to believe, that would be their position. But they take the position that wartime experiences have no bearing on suicides.
You're covered in roses, you're covered in ashes, you're covered in rain.